Let's jump right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to embark on an incredibly profound journey. I want you to just slow down for a second and picture something with me. Imagine a dialectical collision, a massive clash of ideas between two absolute titans separated by 24 centuries. On one side, we've got Plato, the ancient philosopher whose inquiries literally shaped Western metaphysical thought as we know it. And on the other, we have Elon Musk, the modern techno-philosopher whose ventures are fundamentally redefining our physical and digital realities today. In this Explainer, we're taking a really close look at their hypothetical debate, drawing directly from a fascinating comparative analysis of their worldviews. We aren't just comparing two famous guys here. We're actually examining two entirely different blueprints for the future of the human soul. So let's dive into it.
Here is the roadmap for our Explainer today. We'll start with 1, the digital cave. Then move to 2, truth in the algorithmic agora. After that, 3, Martian dreams, earthly flaws. Followed by 4, merging mind and machine. Then we'll look at 5, the philosopher king of tech. And finally, 6, shadows or illumination.
All right, Section 1, the digital cave, reimagining ancient allegories for the modern era.
So, to set the stage, Plato argues from a metaphysical standpoint that humanity essentially remains chained within a dimly lit cavern. We are constantly mistaking artificial projections, basically shadows dancing on a wall, for absolute truth. In his classical framework, our senses are actively deceiving us, and we're blissfully captivated by these illusions, totally detached from any higher enlightenment. Conversely, Musk operates in a realm of pure technological pragmatism. He's looking at literal, physical chains, our utter dependence on finite fossil fuels, the sheer frailty of our biological limits, and our terrifying vulnerability on one single planet. Through entities like Tesla and SpaceX, his aim is to aggressively shatter those tangible constraints. You have to admit, both present incredibly compelling arguments for human liberation. One is demanding the liberation of the mind through deep philosophy, and the other is demanding the liberation of the species through applied physics.
Let's look at this ancient challenge posed straight from the Platonic perspective. Plato asks, are you constructing ladders toward enlightenment, or merely crafting more sophisticated shadows that further enchant the prisoners? I want you to really let that sink in for a moment. Think about what these sophisticated shadows look like in our lives right now. Are our modern digital miracles, the dopamine loops of infinite scrolling, the highly curated hyperreality of our social feeds, those completely immersive virtual worlds, are they actually elevating our human consciousness? Or are they just higher definition shadows on the cave wall? Because sure, we have unprecedented access to information, yet Plato would absolutely ask if we're merely using these brilliant tools to keep ourselves perpetually distracted from genuine, deeper truths.
And immediately, we get the pragmatic counter-argument from the Musk perspective. I'm not a shadow maker, I'm developing tools to shatter those very chains. Look, to a techno-optimist, philosophizing about shadows is a luxury for a species that hasn't even secured its biological survival against a cold, dark, and highly unforgiving universe. Philosophical abstraction might be elegant, sure, but it doesn't solve an immediate existential peril. Innovation provides practical, measurable pathways to freedom. If you are literally stuck in a physical cave, you don't just sit there and contemplate the nature of the rock walls, right? You need a high-powered drill, you need a lasting light source, and eventually, you need a rocket to get out of the whole shebang.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, truth in the algorithmic agora, dissecting the free speech platform. To truly grasp this next battleground, we need to understand how classical philosophy distinguishes between two absolutely vital concepts, doxa and episteme. Doxa is mere opinion. It's based entirely on subjective impressions, what just kind of appears to be true, or what emotionally feels right in the heat of the moment. It relies heavily on tribalism and immediate reaction. Episteme, on the other hand, is genuine knowledge. It is painstakingly grounded in rigorous reason and virtue. And the pursuit of episteme, well, it's often painful. Realizing the actual truth forces you out of your comfort zone, while doxa merely flatters you. This fundamental difference really elevates our understanding of why a completely unfiltered digital platform absolutely terrifies classical philosophers. They fear a societal structure ruled entirely by the fleeting passions of doxa, utterly devoid of the difficult intellectual labor required for episteme.
And this is where we hit the absolute core tension of modern communication. Think about the democratic ideal of the digital age. Acoustic resonance. This is the classic Silicon Valley ethos that information wants to be free. It's the steadfast belief that if you just remove the institutional filters, abandon the gatekeepers, and let ideas violently compete in a totally open digital space, truth is naturally going to emerge and resonate victorious. But then you have dialectical understanding.
The Platonic view forcefully argues that without philosophical training, the digital agora just becomes a massively sophisticated echo chamber. Algorithms are fundamentally designed to reward outrage over wisdom. Falsehoods often resonate powerfully precisely because they appeal to our baser instincts. The likes, the retweets, the upvotes. Plato would look at those not as metrics of truth, but simply as metrics of doxa, consistently privileging the provocative over what is profoundly true.
So I want to break the fourth wall here and ask you directly. Does the digital marketplace actually breed enlightening dialogue, or is it simply a cacophony where the loudest voices always prevail? It's a really heavy philosophical question. We are relying entirely on democratic expression to sort out the truth right now. But remember, even Plato warned that the masses, swayed by rhetorical skill and raw emotion rather than logical validity, democratically voted to sentence his brilliant teacher Socrates to death. Is the algorithmic attention economy truly a path to collective enlightenment? It's something we really have to wrestle with.
Section 3. Martian Dreams, Earthly Flaws, the Ethics of Multiplanetary Survival.
Let's pivot from the digital realm out to the stars. The techno-optimist thesis here is clear and incredibly ambitious. Mars colonization represents not escape, but insurance, preserving consciousness against existential threats. This perspective operates on a massive cosmic scale. It argues that technology is essentially neutral. It's just a potent tool awaiting application. And the absolute highest possible moral application of that tool is ensuring that the fragile light of human consciousness isn't abruptly snuffed out by a rogue asteroid, total climate collapse, or some biological catastrophe. Making humanity multiplanetary is framed not just as a fun sci-fi adventure, but as an unarguable moral imperative of survival against the vast, indifferent vacuum of space.
But here comes the classical volley right back from Plato. Mere survival without virtue represents not triumph, but tragic hollowness. The antithesis here is just incredibly powerful. The classical view warns that if we transplant our terrestrial greed, our aggression, and our profound ignorance to a brand new planet, we're simply changing the planetary backdrop of our exact same human tragedy. Picture domed cities on Mars, right? Technologically wondrous, absolutely amazing to look at, yet still completely plagued by the very same tribalism, political corruption, and inequality we experience right here on Earth. Without genuine moral evolution, unchecked ambition might just militarize the cosmos, and human greed will simply exploit Martian resources just as unsustainably as Earth's. Mere biological survival of the human species means very little if the species itself isn't virtuous.
Is sustainability on 2 planets actually preferable to wisdom on 1? I really want to slow the pacing down for a moment here, because this profound inquiry challenges us to weigh the value of mere physical continuity against our ethical evolution. Think about it. Are we just trying to ensure our biology persists, or are we actively trying to ensure our humanity is actually worth preserving in the first place?
That brings us to Section 4, Merging Mind and Machine, the Metaphysics of Neuralink.
Now we are getting into the absolute core disagreement over what fundamentally constitutes our humanity. On one hand, we have the view of consciousness as computational hardware. This is the idea that our minds emerge entirely and exclusively from electrochemical neural activity. On the other hand, we have the classical view of the transcended soul or psyche. This view insists that while consciousness may inhabit the material brain, it ultimately points toward and participates in immaterial realities that completely transcend basic physical explanation. The implications here are literally massive. If we're merely biological hardware, we can be endlessly upgraded. But if we possess a transcendent soul, attempting to basically overclock the hardware to achieve enlightenment completely misses the point. Building on that hardware debate, we have the transhumanist hope perfectly summarized right here. Enhancing that substrate through technological augmentation could expand consciousness to unprecedented dimensions. Right now, as humans, we are severely limited by literal bandwidth. Think about the incredibly slow speed at which our fingers can type on a keyboard versus the lightning speed at which our brains can actually form thoughts. If we are essentially biological machines, then upgrading our hardware, breaking that frustrating bandwidth constraint, and directly merging mind with machine to map the brain's electrochemical signals, well, that will inherently expand our capacity to process massive amounts of information. And therefore, the hope is it will unlock a cosmic understanding of the universe.
And here is the razor-sharp philosophical counter to that. The most powerful neural interface cannot itself produce wisdom. It can only amplify our existing intellectual tendencies. The Platonic perspective emphatically cautions that simply accelerating your processing speed without a foundational, rigorous ethical orientation doesn't actually lead to higher understanding. It only leads to accelerated confusion. A neural implant cannot give a person a moral compass.
If you plug a flawed, highly biased, unexamined mind directly into a supercomputer, you do not instantly get enlightenment. You literally just make that person infinitely faster at making the exact same mistakes they were already predisposed to make.
Section 5. The Philosopher King of Tech, Assessing Leadership and Self-Awareness.
Classical philosophy strongly demands the rigorous Socratic journey inward. This is a painful, fiercely honest examination of one's own motivations, hidden assumptions, and glaring limitations before wielding immense power. The source material points out a profound historical truth. Even the most noble intentions, like literally saving humanity from existential threats, can become deeply corrupted if the creator lacks profound self-knowledge. Today, we have unelected architects of the human future wielding power that ancient emperors could only dream of. The old Socratic demand to know thyself has never, ever been more critical, because visionaries whose wisdom is clouded by unyielding success and constant adulation often fail when their self-awareness refuses to keep pace with their wildly growing influence.
But hey, this isn't just about pointing fingers at the titans of tech. Let's apply this Socratic examination to our own daily lives. Are you a tech addict? Listen to these points drawn directly from the source material and ask yourself, do you check your smartphone every hour at least? Do you ever wake up in the middle of the night just to read notifications? Are you completely dependent on modern conveniences? Do you blindly equate having more technological tools with actual life improvement? I challenge you to really reflect on this. It is incredibly easy to scrutinize the billionaires building the platforms, sure, but are we, as everyday users, actively forging our own invisible chains? Are we willingly walking further into the digital cave every single time we absent-mindedly unlock our screens?
Section 6. Shadows or Illumination? The Ultimate Synthesis.
I want you to take a moment and read this haunting classical warning with me. The most dangerous shadows are those we cast ourselves yet fail to recognize. If we build rockets that reach the absolute furthest stars, but we completely fail to build our own character, it is our own inner shadows that are going to destroy us. Unexamined ambition, even ambition beautifully disguised as saving the entire world, remains the ultimate existential threat.
The ultimate synthesis of these two massive worldviews is that unprecedented technological power absolutely requires unprecedented philosophical wisdom to guide civilization's advancement toward genuine flourishing. It isn't about halting technological progress or fearfully retreating from the future. It's about ensuring our incredibly potent tools illuminate reality rather than obscure it. We absolutely must deeply harmonize our wildly expanding physical capacities with deep, rigorous, and often incredibly uncomfortable ethical insight. Technology must ultimately serve humanity's highest possible development, not just continuously entertain us or render us completely dependent on opaque algorithmic systems we don't even fully understand.
I'm going to leave you with this final resonant question drawn from our sources today. Will these incredible modern enterprises actually lead humanity out of the cave, or will they merely project much more sophisticated shadows upon its walls? Think about that the very next time you pick up your phone, look up at a SpaceX rocket launch, or log on to a digital platform. Thank you so much for joining me on this profound journey today. Keep questioning, keep examining those shadows, and I'll see you in the next explainer.